Hello there, friends. How we doing? Adam here from The Freight. I am coming to you today with a really special video, one that I'm pretty excited about, actually. Um, I have gotten a couple of the recent Because Sound Matters one steps, and this is I'm going to talk about one of the sort of, I guess it's considered like a sister company. Um, this one is called the Definitive Sound Series, which is more of the sort of Capital Geffen group, but still done by the dude Grover, who is in charge of a lot of different things at Because Sound Matters and the Definitive Sound Series now, which has done a couple of these one steps, including the Prince and this one. And this is what we're talking about today. Dr. Dre, The Chronic. This is a classic gangster rap hip hop record that was certainly a big part of my growing up. I grew up just south of Boston in a city called Quincy. And, you know, that time, that era hit hard in the city with gangster rap, hip hop. It was an explosion of all these new kinds of artists. Dr. Dre, Tupac, Biggie, NWA was big at the time. All these artists were coming in and starting to influx in the early 90s, early to mid 90s with this wild, amazing new stuff that nobody had ever heard anything like. And, you know, granted, it's not for everybody, and I totally get that. But, you know, I was young with a lot of energy, and my friends were young with a lot of energy at that time. And this was music that got us up and got us going. And, you know, Dr. Dre, The Chronic was one of those records that hit first. This was an early one. This was 1992, December 1992, this originally came out. And this was one of the ones that was, you know, hugely influential at the time. And then subsequent releases with Snoop and Tupac and, you know, then the East Coast, West Coast thing all followed after that. But this was a very important record for music in general. I think that's what makes this a really interesting one step, guys. This is a piece of music history, right? And not in like the traditional way of like, you know, that we all think about, you know, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's or something like that. But it also is in a way like that because it's an album that was one of the first really true monumental hip hop records. And for that reason, it's incredibly important. And Dr. Dre, of course, would go on to influence countless people with his production styles, his raps, his lyrics, his music, his production, all the things that he puts together. I think what makes Chronic such an incredible record is, well, a few things. The samples that he puts together, right? The samples on this record are fantastic. What's amazing about this also is that this was recorded to tape. This whole record was recorded to tape. This one step came from tape, right? This is mastered by Chris Bellman at Bernie Grundman Studios from the original analog tapes from 1992. There wasn't a lot of tape happening in 1992. The fact that this was done to tape, you know, it does say something. And, you know, I'm going to go ahead and get the comparison portion of this video out of the way immediately because, frankly, it doesn't even need to be much of a comparison. I had this is a 2023 press of The Chronic. I think it was like a repress of 2020 or something like that, a modern repress. Not a gatefold. This is just, you know, the single jacket. It is over 2 LPs, which it has been for, you know, the last 20-something years. It's been over 2 LPs. When it originally came out, it was only on 1 LP. So that's also interesting because that means the original record was just jammed with music. I've never listened to an OG, so I can't tell you how it sounds compared to an OG, but I can tell you that that's a lot of music to put on one record. It's much better served across 2 LPs. So this, it sounds okay. You know, it sounds all right. again, I'll speak to myself personally. I don't necessarily go to hip hop or um, you know, rap records or whatever necessarily for quote unquote audiophile or like for the necessarily the sonic qualities. However, this is a decent sounding record, okay? But this one step, this is on another level, guys. This is on another level. I wasn't sure what to expect. I bought this when they announced it because for a couple of reasons. I wanted to hear Dre's production on the Chronic at its sort of, maximum potential. I did. I wanted to hear it. I wanted to hear the samples. There's live instruments on this. There's drums. There's some flute. There's some, tons of instruments on this are recorded live, mixed in with some of the, the samples that he has. So, all done to tape, mastered by Chris Bellman at Bernie Grumman Studios. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, this record absolutely slams. The bass on this record slams. It's tight. It's not bloated at all. It's not that kind of flubby, like, woo, it's not bloated. This is a super tight, amazing sounding record that truly slams. And I listened to this first, right? I hadn't played this in a while, so I popped it on. I listened, gave it a good listen to the first time all the way through. And I was like, all right, it sounds cool. Yeah, it sounds good. Didn't have any issues at all, really. It was fine. And then I put on the one step, guys. And oh my God, it was like, it just slammed. Not in like a overly thing way. The bass is tight. The bass is tight, but like has this authority that is a life that you did not know was there came to me, right? That I didn't know was there came to me for sure when I listened to it on the one step. It was a really cool listening experience, guys. I haven't listened to a gangster rap hip hop record in a while. And it was cool to throw that on, put me back, in my early teenage years and put myself back in that kind of thing that I was hearing back then, that we all were hearing back then, back in the day. And, it was awesome to hear it like that. I swear it was really great. Now this isn't a record that is going to get like, overly played. I'm a dad now. I have kids around. It's not something I'm ever going to play with my kids in the house. And I get that. And but what it is it's a sort of watershed moment of music that's marked in this really fantastic pressing, right? And it's not for everybody. It's absolutely not for everybody. And I completely recognize that. I bought it mainly for nostalgia. There are some fantastic tracks on here that take you back if you're into this kind of thing. There's some that are like, are what they are. You take them for what the music is. But hearing it in this way is pretty wild. Hearing a hip hop record, a rap record, a gangster rap record with this level of fidelity, it was cool. It was a very cool experience. I can tell you the bass slams. It's got incredible impact, but it's super tight, not bloated at all. And, it really was an open soundstage. It was not like it was way beyond the speakers. It was a cool experience to sit down, turn up, and listen to the whole record. I listened to it front to back, both discs, no problem, multiple times over the last few days. It's great. So let me take you through, what's in here. So again, this is the Definitive Sound series, which is different than the Because Sound Matters series. However, I do think they're maybe like sister companies or related in some way. But this is my understanding is this is more the Geffen Capital kind of area of it. I could be wrong, but it's definitely related. You can tell the packaging is very similar. It has this. Let me show you the back. It has this kind of. I'm keeping the shrink on. I think it has this same kind of board, thing. This one's gold, obviously. My number is 953 out of 3,000. I was an early adopter of this one. I ordered when they announced it. So I do have a number that's under 1,000, which is like, I don't know, kind of cool, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Let me show you the record. So this is, it doesn't say, obviously, the Because Sound Matters ones. This has the RTI pressing because it was pressed at RTI. You can see it has the original kind of, the Chronic ones. This is the same ones that the, it is the translucent. I can actually see through it now. This is the translucent Neotech vinyl. Fantastically quiet record. Obviously, that helps the slam and the, the music come off the record with like a ton of fidelity. That Neotech vinyl really is quite something. Let me show you this. Now, one thing I learned, I watched Steve Westman. He had Grover, who manages and runs the Because Sound Matters in this series as well, Definitive Sound series. And he was talking about this being done in a gatefold, which I guess, sorry, let me grab this for you. Sorry, I'm over here. Don't mind me. I'm coming right back. This is something that slipped out that I forgot to tell you guys about. This is something that comes with the Definitive Sound series. This is a certificate of authenticity. Means whatever you want it to mean for yourself. But just to show you, that's what it is. Here's the record. It is a super high quality jacket, Let me show you the inside. This is a insert in the 2023 one. The 2020 or 2020 repress that I have there is not a gatefold. It's just the that came as an insert. So that's cool, to have the and there's nothing else in here. It's just those. I'm just making sure. Yep, nothing else. So that's the packaging. So yeah, I guess what I want to tell you guys is if you are into hip hop in the 90s, the gangster rap, the rap, the hip hop, the grooves that started all this modern stuff that we're hearing today, through the 2000s into today. The Chronic is a very important record for that. Dre is a very important artist for hip hop, one of the most important. And he's one of the ones who has continued it on, just like Snoop. He's one of the sort of forefathers of bridging that gap between early hip hop and, the New York streets to, obviously Dre was West Coast, and bringing that sound everywhere. And the Chronic is a great record to celebrate that. It is an influential record. I'm happy I own it. It's not for everybody, but I will tell you the sound is ridiculous. It is a fun listen. It's like the music, the bass slams, the music jumps right out at you with super clarity. If interests you at all, I do think you will enjoy it. If it's not your thing, you obviously won't enjoy it, and that's totally fine. But this did bring me back to a place where, early hip hop, early rap, early gangster rap was coming to my life, and, where it was a big thing back then. It was a big thing. I remember the controversy it created. I remember, all of us talking about it, and therefore all of us listening to it. MTV played a big part in that, and it, being in our lives. So yeah, it's a cool one step to have for me, for nostalgia purposes. It's not like any kind of monumental album in my life. I'm not that big of a hip hop guy where I need to where I chase down hip hop relentlessly, or gangster rap relentlessly. However, the fact that this is a one step, and this is the first audio file or one step of a record like this, I was interested, and it didn't disappoint at all. So if it's at all up your alley, I can't recommend it enough. It's a very enjoyable listen if this record is something you're interested in, and Dre is an artist you like and respect. This is cool. It's a cool release to check out and put on your list. Check out how his production and those loops and those samples and all the other live instruments come into play on a hip hop record in a real high fidelity way, it was worth hearing. Just from a pure observational musical appreciation way, it was cool to hear the music jump off like that. So yeah, there you have it. Dr. Dre, The Chronic, One Step. For me, it was a good purchase. Happy to have it. And I will see you in the next one. Please leave your comments. Let me know what you think of it. Obviously, it's a bit of a controversial topic or one step choice. Let me know in the comments and like and subscribe while you're here. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.